But if the best meal you ever had came from a kitchen that was completely falling apart behind the scenes, where perfection on the plate meant pressure everywhere else, where burnout, stress, and toxic environments were just part of the recipe.
When we think about fine dining, we picture beautiful plates, perfectly placed microgreens, and meals that feel like art. But behind those swinging doors, the reality isn't always so pretty. Long hours, high pressure, yelling, a culture that's been called everything from intense to straight up toxic. And the question is, has that environment just been accepted as the cost of excellence?
Welcome to Too Many Cooks in the Kitchen, a mother-daughter duo.
Bringing two generations, two perspectives, industry experience, and a fresh perspective into the kitchen.
We talk about real food, real life, and what actually happens behind the scenes of the food world, not just what happens on your plate.
Today we're talking all about toxic kitchen culture from a real-life perspective, one of lived experience. We were inspired to cover this topic today because of the recent news about the world-renowned restaurant Noma and its chef Renee Redseppi.
I am excited to talk about this episode particularly because I have certainly lived this. And in a previous episode, our recipe recap, I had mentioned how I turned down a job to work for Charlie Trotter, predominantly because I didn't want to work for someone who had such a reputation as a hothead. And I believed it wasn't super important for me to go into a restaurant like that when it would have been just terrible for my personal, mental, and probably physical health. And you know a lot about that as well.
I know a decent amount about it. Growing up, wanted to be in that kind of environment. I wanted to be like a Michelin-starred chef, and then as I grew and experienced different kitchens, I learned that that was not an environment that I want to be in, could tolerate. It doesn't support my health and well-being, and so I went in a different direction, and I'm very glad for it. So, yeah.
Yeah, in my many years working in the kitchens, and even when I had my own restaurant, I certainly have lost my temper and have learned to control that, certainly through time. But I remember when you were little and you wanted to be a chef, and you were helping me in the kitchen, we had this one rule. There was no crying in the kitchen. If you got upset, you had to go back in the pantry and you had to compose yourself and you had to come back once you were calm enough. Because when you're trying to execute all of these food items, plates at a high degree of perfection, like in these really Michelin star type, high award-winning restaurants, right? The guest expects a certain amount of perfection and art. They're going for that experience. But the kitchen in the back, all of those chefs and line cooks and everything, executing on that, there's a high pressure environment. It's a pressure keg. And so one of the things I don't think is taught in culinary school, certainly not when I was in culinary school, is actually conflict management and working under that pressure. I think it's almost like accepted that that's the way it is. So everyone's just like happy with that. And so like us talking about this, I think it's pertinent because I remember you went to culinary school and you were like, Mom, I'm going to work for Noma and Renee Redseppi. And I even bought you the cookbook for, I think, your graduation from the CIA, right? So
I think it was, you got it for me.
It might have been before.
It was before. I think it was during the Journey for Juniors thing, or when we went.
Oh, yeah, it was the Journey for Juniors. I bought it.
So I did this, the CIA, Culinary Institute of America has had, I'm not sure, a program where high schoolers going from junior to senior year, they like let them on the campus for a weekend and you get to like play culinary student for the weekend. And my mom brought me to that. You brought me to that. And you got me the cookbook because I'd been like so excited about Noma because I kept on saying that that's where I wanted to work. And yeah, obviously I didn't end up there, and I'm I'm grateful for that, knowing what I know now about everything that went on there. I don't think I really would it would have been a very healthy, and it's not a healthy environment for anybody, but especially for me.
So, it brings me to a question of how did you feel when you saw the news break about Noma? Did that like hit you in a different way than
It was
maybe others?
really disappointing, honestly, and I'm sure that's probably the reaction a lot of people had, just to see like someone, I mean, Renee Redseppi, like he really, I mean, he was seen as such an innovator and like really renowned for his cooking all over the world. I mean, he had the best restaurant in the world for I think like 5 years, was top of the number one of the top 50 restaurants in the world for a long time. And I mean, he's inspired so many people and really changed how fine dining culture is just in terms of like what's on the plate. And it was just really disappointing to see somebody that is so inspiring for, culinary innovation be so just, I don't even know what the right word for it is, like just demeaning to his staff. And I mean, truly just like, I mean, it should be illegal, like all the things, I mean, abuse is, but like, I mean, and he's not gone to jail or anything like that. And I'm not saying he necessarily should, but it's just like, it's really disgusting to see somebody that you idolize like fall so low. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I just don't understand why. I mean, I to a degree understand, like, because it is a very pressure packed environment and you want all of your staff to embody the way that you would be and everything that you bring to the table in the kitchen. You want, because you can't be everywhere all at once. You can't do all of these things all by yourself. And so I guess he felt like the best way to inspire others was through fear. I just don't think that that
Right,
is.
but harassment's harassment. But it's interesting. So now I work in a corporate world, and if you do any of those kinds of things and you are demeaning, you're not going
You
to
get
be at your
fired.
job. Correct. Oh, and that's like best case. Worst case is
Yeah, you
you
get.
get sued. Um, a- and
I'm surprised it
it's
hasn't come to that, honestly, with all these people coming out about, the abuse over the years. I'm surprised there isn't some kind of suit against him, like class action, with all these people coming forward.
well, I mean, certainly like Babbo, that restaurant, Mari Batali, his was predominantly sexual harassment, and certainly he lost his
Yeah.
restaurant, I believe. Certainly didn't go well for him at all. But he, for a long time, was in the limelight, and he had his own TV show and all of that. But it's almost like we think, well, that's the restaurant world, so we can almost like accept it a little bit, and I would love that to change.
I think most people really would. I mean, one of the reasons I love my job so much, like I work by myself as a private chef, and I love working with other chefs. But one of the reasons that I love working by myself is because it's so peaceful and I don't have to like deal with anyone else's energy and like bullshit and negativity. So yeah, I mean, it's a peaceful environment to be able to like come into something and it be like quiet and calm, and you can create from a place of, peacefulness, not just like all this anxiety and pressure. And I mean, that has a place too. And not every single day of my work is super peaceful. It's still a lot of pressure sometimes to, perform and like put out product and stuff. But for the most, like, at least I don't have some chef yelling at me.
It's the same with the inn. I had it for 6.5, almost 7 years, and in general, I got to have the creativity, right? Like I would work with the clients if I was doing a private dinner. work with them on the menu. But in general, most people allowed me to have a lot of creativity in creating some food pairings. And of course, every week the restaurant had a different menu because it was seasonal. So I got to create that. And I truly enjoyed that. And anytime I've ever worked in a kitchen, even professional kitchen at a restaurant, it was the time I enjoyed it the most was when I was given the license to be creative. I think that's what I love most about cooking professionally is it's like you're an artist, you have a canvas, you think about the food you put on, the flavors. So like having that creativity, being able to be like an artist. I mean, well, chefs are artists, really, in actuality. That ability to be able to think about the flavors as they mesh together, just like an artist would think about the colors to put on a canvas. And then you are presenting that plate, just as if an artist, a painter, is presenting that at a studio.
One of my
And
favorite quotes from Marco Pierre White is, I believe it goes, "A man that works with his hands is how does it go? It's a man that works with his hands is a builder," or something like that. And a man that works with his hands and his mind is, I gotta look it up because it's a really good one. Okay. It says, a person who works with their hands is a laborer. A person who works with their hands and their head is a craftsman. And a person who works with their hands, their head, and their heart is an artist. I love that quote.
very well said. Yeah, I would say that. That is for sure the way I would think about it. And that heart part, you get the enjoyment out of that creativity. And then seeing or watching as someone puts a spoonful of your food that you made in their mouths and you watch their eyes close and almost like roll back in their head, it just warms the cockles of my heart. I don't know what the cockles are, but that's that. So to bring it back to the real discussion about toxic kitchens, to give context, because there may be people who have no idea about this whole Noma and Renee Redseppi thing.
Yes.
So I think you did a little bit of research into kind of some of the incidences that happened.
Yes.
So do
Yes.
tell.
I have some quotes from some articles. I'm just going to give a little brief summary of what's been happening. The restaurant Noma. So the restaurant Noma was previously in Copenhagen, Denmark. It was there for a long time. And Renee Redseppi, the head chef of Noma, he brought Noma to, be world renowned. It had multiple Michelin starred. I'm not sure exactly how many. Let me link it up. I think it had 3. I guess I didn't thoroughly do all my research. My bad.
It's hard to get 3 Michelin stars.
Noma, located in Copenhagen, held 3 Michelin stars as of 2021. And it was globally recognized for pioneering Nordic cuisine, which was something that had never really been seen outside the world outside in the rest of the world, other than, the Nordic culture.
Well, having lived in Sweden for a year, I can tell you that herring and dill and mustard and the Nordic flavors, because they have very short growing season, isn't something that strikes most people as yum.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. It's like basic food.
Yeah, but he really popularized the use of foraging and fermentation in like super hyper seasonal ingredients in the world of fine dining. And so that's really what put his name on the culinary map. Recently, Noma is doing a pop-up in LA, and they are charging a very steep per person fee of $1,500 for dinner. And so I don't know
Pricey.
if, yes, very crazy. So back in February, just a couple months ago, or in April now, in February, one of his previous chefs wrote something or wrote an article, and it got, I don't know if it was an article or just a lengthy comment on an Instagram post, or caption, not comment, detailing some of the abuse that he himself had experienced during his time at Noma working for Renee Redseppi, and it highlighted a lot of abuse, and so a lot of other people that had experienced similar things working under Redseppi started to come forward. So the person who posted to Instagram, his name was Jason Ignacio White. He was a former head chef of Noma's fermentation lab, and he wrote, "Noma is not a story of innovation. It is a story of a maniac that would breed a culture of fear, abuse, and exploitation." And then he goes on to say, his damage to young chefs and trusted team members created a generation of broken dreams and future abusers that spread globally. It still matters, and we are coming forward in hopes to build a better future for everyone in the culinary landscape we dedicated our lives to.
That's really brave, first of all, of Jason to do that. I was just listening to a new podcast by Adam Grant and Brene Brown, and their first episode, called The Curiosity Shop, is the name of the podcast. And in it, they were just kind of talking about how if you're in an environment where it's kind of accepted to be strong and pushy and abusive, and the newer employees, believe it or not, in that toxic culture, even in corporate culture, not just culinary culture, is that the young people actually go on, if they're in that environment, to continue to perpetuate that. Versus if they're brought into a positive culture, those people eventually become positive leaders and spread that positivity, because a young person coming in out of school and they go and they start their first job, they're learning what is accepted and the way it's supposed to be, right? It's like being a kid on the playground, your first day at school in a new school. What do? You're going to try to check it out and figure out what's the lay of the land. Well, you're a new culinary employee, and you see this throwing of things and toxic culture and yelling. And one, you're going to be like freaked out at first if you're not used to that environment. And second is that now you begin to become that yourself and go on to the future other places and spread that toxic culture. And so he is so right, on point, that it continues to perpetuate. Now, the genie's out of the bottle, or Pandora's box is open, actually, maybe is a better metaphor. Getting it closed again, it's going to take a lot of work. And I think, personally, I think it's going to take diners choosing with their dollars. But in order to do that, you have to have transparency, and you have to have an understanding of restaurants that are positive environments. And so many people just don't want to speak up because they're trying to gain that experience working for a really nice restaurant. You know, some of these fancier restaurants are harder to get into as a chef. So they're highly competitive spots and highly coveted.
And the thing
People don't want to take the chance.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about working in a restaurant like this, I mean, so a lot of Noma's labor, I mean, they have a huge kitchen staff to produce, you know, these plates that have so many components and they're very intricate. You know, I mean, it takes a very large kitchen staff, and I mean, that's a very, I mean, it's the amount of money that they're making for the food does not support the amount of kitchen staff. So much of their labor is free labor and are from stages. And so there were so many people I was reading about were saying, like, they, for one example, a woman, she worked for months to save money and then sold her car to go work for Noma for free just for the experience to put it on her resume, because basically once you've worked for a restaurant like this, you can write your ticket at other restaurants. But like, I mean,
But explain the
you're,
term stage, because
yeah.
that is a jargony term that's only in the culinary world.
So a stage, spelled stage, is basically
But
just a
it's
try.
French, so you need to pronounce it stage.
Yes. Um, it's basically just a tryout at a restaurant. A lot of restaurants have tryouts for like a week or a couple days to see, and it's essentially like the restaurant is like seeing if they like you and seeing if they want to hire you, and vice versa. You're seeing if you like the restaurant and would want to continue working there in the future. Most stages, but in places like this, a stage can last for months, and it is unpaid labor. So you're not being paid, you're working extremely long hours. I have a quote here that says, I don't know what to say, to produce enough, and this is from a New York Times article. It says, to produce enough for each dinner, many of the cooks at every level started early in the morning and worked until the kitchen was clean at 1 a.m. So they started in the early hours of the morning and didn't leave until early hours of the next morning, which is
Oh,
just
and that's
ridiculous.
common though for people
That
to, so
is,
they have context in restaurants, right? When I was a pastry chef, I got in at, well, I tried to get in at 4, but there was a room up above the kitchen, so I had to be really quiet in washing pans and not making too much clanging noises when I'm in there. But often I would get there at 5. But I had to be pretty much done by 10 o'clock because the chef and the sous chef showed up at 10 o'clock to start prep for the dinner. And then they would close up shop at generally 11 or so. And so they're working
but
easily
you
12, 13
didn't
hours.
leave at 11. You got to leave earlier than that.
Well, often it depended on how many desserts I needed to make and the type of desserts I chose. I remember the first day I got there and I've got this, and I'm there at 5 and I'm making the desserts, and then all of a sudden they show up at 10. Now I went from having the whole kitchen which was not a large kitchen, and the 8 burner stove, and I've got things in the stove, I've got things in the oven, I've got things spread out all over the place because I'm making lady fingers from scratch, because I'm making a tiramisu, I'm making a cheesecake that's in the oven cooking nice low and slow. I've got stuff everywhere. All of a sudden they show up and they need to work, and I'm like, I learned very quickly that I needed to get everything that required stovetop space done by 10 o'clock. And then I could move over to my little area, which was about maybe 5 feet wide, to decorate, finish, and finalize all of the remainders of the things that I needed to do, which most kitchens are very tight. So what I believe also maybe adds to a little bit of the stress in a kitchen is your close proximity to your coworkers, and you're bumping up against them all day and trying to avoid getting burned or cut as you are working in this kind of coordinated, orchestrated movement ballet of trying to execute on the dishes. I think it's overly stressful in that, but the hours are also long in almost every cooking field, even if it is the best place to work, just because it
Yes.
takes a lot of prep ahead of dinner, and then you finish your dinner
Yep.
service, and then you've got to clean.
Even what I would consider as far as culinary jobs go, even my cushy job as a private chef, I still work long hours. And, you're standing on your feet, you're hungry, even though you're surrounded by food. Maybe that's just me, though.
No, I think sometimes it's like you're not going to be shoving food in your face while you're trying to prep food for others. One,
No.
that's highly unsanitary. And
Yeah.
just two, it's like you're focused on the job. You're not focused on your time. And like you have said in previous episodes, it is, one, it's healthy for you also to sit down and enjoy a meal
Yes.
and not just scarf it down. And I suffer from, because of so many years in the culinary world, that I sit down to a meal and I just like inhale it. And I am slowly trying to work on mindful eating and enjoying the process of consuming the food and the flavors rather than just shoving the food in my mouth as fast as I can so I can get on to the next thing.
I am not guilty of that. I am always, always the slowest eater anywhere I
Take
go.
after your
Anytime I'm
grandmother.
eating with people, I just like to savor the food, and I don't like to eat too fast because then you feel gross afterwards. And yeah, but we're getting off topic anyways.
Totally off topic. Back to the toxic nature of the kitchens.
Yeah.
I mean, so you did you worked at the Island Creek Oyster Bar in Boston.
Yes, which
That
is
was
no
your
longer
like
there,
big-
sadly.
yeah. Yeah. But
But
how was that experience? I mean, from a fresh
um,
chef, mid
yeah, so I
culinary.
was just a little culinary extern technically at the time. It was between my um, technically freshman and sophomore year of college. They don't really do it that way. I was just in the associates program, so it was only 2 years. Um, but yeah, between my first and second year, I worked. You have to do an internship or externship where you go to whatever restaurant you want to or are accepted to for the whole summer. And so I decided to go to Boston because I grew up in New Hampshire and it was semi close to home. And it was a very good restaurant group. And I loved my time there. It was long hours and yeah, it was long hours and a lot of work, but it was very rewarding. I had a lot of fun working there. It was one of the biggest kitchen staffs I'd ever worked with. And I was very happy with how the entire summer went. So I started out just on like the salad station because that's
Typical
what they
though.
put all the
Yeah.
the
Right.
new
You can't
the
do much
new
harm in the
people
salad
on.
station as a newbie.
Yeah. Which I stayed on the salad station the whole summer. But when I got there, they had the person training me. She was just like all over the place. She was super nice, but just super disorganized, and she didn't make it. So essentially, like I replaced her, and then they started kind of like expanding the salad station to do other things, and they replaced the unit that I was working on. So like that means just like the refrigerated unit that I was working
Right.
out of.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
replaced it with a much bigger unit, so it allowed the salad station to have like more components coming off of it. And I loved it. It was just so fun to like be working in such a high demand environment with like so many really talented chefs. And like I was just on like the easiest station, but I learned a lot working there. And the brigade system in the kitchen was very like standardized, and I've worked in a lot of kitchens where it's just like they're a lot smaller, so there's just like the chef, and then there's like a couple chef de parties, and then you have your salad station and your fry cook and like and your dishwasher, and like that's it. But this was like a much bigger operation. There was a head chef and then like 2 sous chefs and a bunch of chef de parties and like 4 dishwashers, and so
It was a busy restaurant. I mean, I ate there, and that place because it was
yeah.
right near. It was in the what was the name
It
of
was
the
right
hotel?
around the corner from Fenway Park,
Well,
right
yeah,
on
Fenway, but
Fenmore
then it was
Ave,
in the hotel of what was the name of
the
the hotel?
Commonwealth
The
Hotel.
Commonwealth. So it
I
had
don't
a
know.
prime spot.
Yeah, it is a very, very busy restaurant.
It also had the best biscuit I have ever
Oh my
eaten
God. Well, I
in
would
my
say
life.
the best biscuit that I'd ever had until I started learning how to make really good biscuits. And now I would say that my biscuits rival those ones. But they were so big. I mean, this biscuit was
It was
like this
mind
big.
blowing. I mean,
And then
I can make a good biscuit. It was the honey butter, whatever herb
yeah,
thing that
they
they were
would
throwing
slather
on it.
them with honey and then they would put them in like the broiler just to get like a little bit crispy, and heat it back up. Oh, it's
That's
so
the
good.
secret. Oh, it
Yeah.
was like you could have eaten it for dessert. Oh, and that rhubarb salad, Olivia still talks about
I don't even
a
remember that.
roasted rhubarb salad. I have an image
Oh,
of it. I know I have a
okay.
picture of it
You
somewhere.
have to send it to me. Maybe I can recreate it sometime. But
Yeah, it had bits of like you could tell like almost like I don't even know like they were caramelized. It was almost like it must have taken the rhubarb and almost done like you would do for orange peel, where
mm,
the caramelized. So they do that first and then they roasted it. So it was
mhm.
sweet, still kept the fiber-ish nature of the rhubarb together. And then I think it was on arugula. I know there was some shaved Parmesan on it,
Hmm.
but I don't
That
remember
must
the
have
dressing.
been something that because I never made that salad. If I made that salad, I would have
You were
remembered it.
working there at the
It
time.
wasn't, it definitely, if it was hot though, it didn't come off my station.
Wasn't hot, it was cold.
Hmm.
It was just a composed, I mean, it was a salad with lettuce and then it had the or arugula, I think, and then it had the roasted rhubarb. But that's okay. You probably were super busy at the time, but you came
No,
out
I
on
would have remembered
top.
that salad if I made
You
it. It definitely
you
was not. I don't
someone
know.
else made it then. You might have been working a different
Made
station
all
that
the
night.
salads.
Huh. Anyway,
I don't know. Whatever.
we're digressing totally.
Yeah.
So to get back on topic, um, did you have any incidences whilst you were there that were
Um,
overly stressful or something where you were like, oh,
oh, I'm
cringeworthy?
sure. I mean, there was nothing that like jumps out in the front of my mind to where I felt like personally attacked or abused
Hmm.
or anything like that. Like this restaurant group had very good culture and was very positive for the most part. I mean, there's always going to be stressful, not, like
That's
every
life.
dinner service is stressful just because of the inherent nature of like what you're doing, but it wasn't, like I mean, I'm sure there was definitely a day or two where I, had to like excuse myself to like take care of an emotional thing or so, like go cry in the walk-in for a second or whatever. But like nothing like super out of the ordinary where, yeah, like I felt attacked or something like that. That never happened.
Yeah, and that's a nice thing and honestly, like not all kitchen culture is toxic, but there's
No,
enough of
there's
it
so
out there.
many.
I
I've
mean, like
never
Gordon
worked.
Ramsay made a whole TV show of being a
Yeah.
hothead, right? Like
Uh-huh.
that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that we glorified that and somebody made a damn TV show of it
Mhm.
probably made it that much more
But it's
acceptable.
definitely perpetuating the toxicity that prevails in kitchens today. I mean, it's become an accepted part of the culture, like if you want to be a chef, it's just like, you got to toughen up and you got to like deal with it, It's not there. I don't think that's the way of it, but that's just how it is a lot of the places you go, and I don't think that should be accepted as widely as it is,
Although
unfortunately.
I
I
have
mean,
to
you
say,
do have
like
to toughen up going into
you
kitchens. Like, that is not,
right.
like,
That's the thing. It's a fine line, right? Because how many times have you been in a kitchen and okay, I'm gonna say the thing that's probably cringy is like there as a woman in a culinary field, which is predominantly male dominated, you first have to prove yourself that you're even that you even are deserving to be in that damn kitchen as a woman because and I have worked with women who come in and they're like worry they break a nail or oh it's too hot or oh this pot is heavy can someone lift it like if you be go work somewhere else please because you are not doing anyone else a favor by the women that work so hard to show that they are capable in that kitchen. And then someone comes in, man or woman, who can't cut it at all. Like they just aren't fast enough. They need 5 times as long to chop stuff Like, please just stay home. Go do your thing in your like
Like,
play.
yeah, like don't try to work if you don't have the mentality or the mental toughness or the like speed to work in a commercial kitchen, a production kitchen, then, and you love cooking, like there's so many other things you can do. I mean, there's so many options in the
Absolutely.
culinary
Now with
industry. You don't need to be a
Instagram, you can
line
be an
cook.
influencer just cooking
Exactly.
dishes and making weird stuff with Velveeta. But you could go
But
down a
yeah, I
rabbit
mean,
hole with
there's
that.
definitely, as a
Right.
woman in a male dominated environment, yes, there is like, you do have to prove yourself and, like, show the guys that you're one of them, or like maybe not one of them, but that you are tough enough to hack it. And, I mean, I personally, I find that I get along better with men anyways. So the kitchen environment is kind of perfect for me because I like being around
Same.
guys and I get along better with men.
Yeah,
So,
I
but
think
I
it's just
think a
that
big part
mentality, the
of that,
competition, right?
yeah,
The
I think that
competition. You can do it
but I
better.
think for me, a big part of that is, like I was raised by dad mostly. I mean, obviously, mom, you're a big part of my life. But growing up, I mean, it was always dad that was like there. And so
Mhm.
I'm much more comfortable just with men or masculine women, or not necessarily masculine women, but women that have a bit more of like a masculine aura or like
Yeah, but I don't even think that
mentality, not like
yeah.
the competitive catty nature that a lot of, that you can see in a lot of feminine dynamics, which
Well, and I
is,
think now I was raised by both my parents, and I can say I'm very similar in that I don't suffer the like small talky, uh, insincere conversation that I have often come
the
across, not
oh bless
always.
your heart thing. It's like,
Yes, aren't you a pretty young
the whole
thing?
gossipy,
Yeah,
like there's
right.
this one podcaster that I listen to a lot, Chris Williamson, and he talked, I forget if it's the oh bless her heart effect or something like that, but it's essentially where like a woman will talk about another woman that she sees doing something, and it's like kind of supposed to be construed as like a positive, like, oh, I'm concerned about her, but really it's you're talking badly about her to like elicit some kind of opinion from the,
Yes.
others,
Otherwise,
and to view this person negatively or not as competition for, like as a
it's a
woman, like
backhanded
it.
compliment.
Yeah,
It is like
exactly.
my "aren't you a pretty young thing" is a southern way of "you're dumb as a box of rocks." I mean, essentially. And there it seems I live in the South now that that is certainly a little bit more hidden kind of thing. Whereas in New England, I think we would just tell you
Yeah,
you're dumb as a box
New
of rocks.
England is
But
totally
we're
different.
it is a very different culture. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think it is for sure to get back on the topic of in the kitchen. It's tough. It's hard work. You have to
Hmm.
be willing to push through the pain. If you get burned, if you get cut, cover
It's
that
just
sucker up and keep going.
part of the job.
Keep
Yeah.
the blood out of the food. But yeah, you're gonna go and wrap it up, put a glove on, and move on. And you've seen me with the third degree burns on the back of my hand with the giant. I had to pad the giant bubble that I had that was
Oh,
3 inches
yes, I
long
remember
and
from the
1 inch
duck
wide.
fat.
Yeah, because
You were
I
making potatoes or something like that, and
duck
it splashed
fat.
onto the back of your hand. Yeah, it
Yep.
was huge. I mean, it was like this big.
It was
Like it was
it was
like the
enormous, like
whole back of
size
your hand.
of my index finger on the back, and so I patted it really well and wrapped it all up and then put a glove on because I did not want to pop that blister because I knew it would scar really badly. So it was taking very a lot of care to make sure I didn't pop it. But I mean, that's the stuff that happens, and
Hmm.
you have to move beyond that. But super, super important that people understand if they want to go into a professional kitchen that there is There's a difference between a toxic kitchen environment that is a lot of yelling, throwing of pots, degrading comments to each other, and all of that. All of that doesn't need to happen, and it's still a tough job. It's long hours and all of that. And so what we're talking about today is trying to fix the toxic nature that is demeaning, degrading, demoralizing to people that work in the industry by those that work alongside them. However, that being said, I don't think we need to fix the fact that being in the culinary world is to be at the top of your game. It takes dedication and it takes long work hours. But the people that are in there doing that are doing it and are passionate about it and don't have a problem working those long hours. I do have a problem, though, if those people are working long hours and they are not being paid properly. We need to ensure that they are making a livable wage. And I'm not just talking about the high dollar fancy, $1,500 a plate or whatever ridiculous bullshit that was happening. I am willing to pay top dollar for good food. But at the same token, we as a culture, especially in the United States, is in fast food. That's like acceptable to pay $2 for a burger made by someone making barely enough to feed themselves. And that is where I have a big problem, is that's toxic, it's extractive. And so I would love to see all fast food restaurants go away and people just cook at home and get away from the processed foods. But that's not happening, right? But the mentality that I don't need to cook because it's cheaper for me to go eat out. When you do that, that's an extractive process of someone making zip and corporate making the profit. Mm-hmm. And so that's the other side of the part that I don't like about fast food restaurants, is that it's terrible for our overall culture and the food culture. And now I shall step down off my soapbox.
Oh, I'm with you with the whole fast food thing. I mean, I've definitely said it on here before. I don't eat fast food. I think it's kind of deplorable, and I wish that we would get away from that being a primary source of nutrition.
There's no nutrition in that. That's just
well, yeah, I know. That's why I put the air quotes around.
Find a word for like what eating at a fast food, like that's not nutrition. Non-nutrition.
Not-trition.
Noxitrition, toxitrition. So we are totally digressing. So to get back on topic, what other kinds of things did you find in your research about Noma?
Well, I have a few more quotes from a New York Times article and one from The Guardian, just to kind of show like the breadth of Renee Redseppi's acceptance and renown in the culinary world. Anthony Bourdain called him, without a doubt, the most influential, provocative, and important chef in the world. I mean, that's saying a lot, especially from Anthony Bourdain. I mean, we all know he's not somebody who makes claims falsely. And if he believed that to be true, then certainly lots of other people did. And then I have a very kind of sad quote here about Renee Redseppi's abuse. This is also from the New York Times article. It says, when Mr. Redseppi wanted to discipline them, but there were customers in the dining room, several employees said he would crouch under the counters in the open kitchen and jab them in the legs with his fingers or nearby utensils, like a barbecue fork. Like, what?
Because I was just thinking like open kitchens would fix this, but apparently not. You have to have them open all the way to the floor.
Yeah.
Which would be,
yeah. And then another one from the New York Times article. This is a quote by Marco Cerruti. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Noma has become so exclusive that it is no longer a restaurant. It's performance art. Said Marco Cerruti, a chef in Los Angeles who worked at the Copenhagen restaurant in 2015. What is Renee's modeling for the industry now? He said, feeding rich people and exploiting young aspirational chefs. And this is essentially, I mean, he's been doing this all the while, but especially now with this LA pop-up where he's charging, I mean, $1,500 for one person is an exorbitant amount of money to charge for one dinner. I don't care if there's 12 courses. Like, that is just
gold-plated,
absolutely
whatever.
Insane. I mean, there should be gold flecks on every friggin' plate at that rate.
You're gonna go out and be toxic with the amount of gold you're gonna have in you.
Yeah.
Foie gras and caviar and whatever else, sweetbreads or whatever else you're serving that's extremely expensive. No.
I mean, it's quite ridiculous because just going back to what Nordic, I mean, I don't have a ton of experience cooking Nordic food, but just the art of foraging and fermentation, like those two things are very conservative in nature. You know, like you're trying to use up like everything you can, you know, like use everything that's useful, not to waste anything, you know, you're preserving for the future and through, you know, so you can eat throughout the winter, and like to turn around and use these practices that were for survival, and so you didn't like have to pay for food and then to like charge $1,500 for one meal that's using these things. It's really like, it's very backwards. And
that seems like when that's
I
the
just
jump the shark moment in your career. Those who might be too young to understand where jump the shark term came from. It was Happy Days back when I was a kid watching TV. And there was a whole episode where Fonzie was water skiing and he had to jump a shark. And at that point, it was like they just did it as a way to get viewers. And it really didn't have a whole lot to do with the storyline. And so this kind of term has come out from that. And it's like the jump the shark moment at the point at which you don't need to do it. You've lost your way and time to shut your doors or shut the show down because of that. Right. And I think, like if you're taking this whole thing of Nordic cuisine and foraging, to me, foraging is all about being in balance with nature.
Exactly.
And there's nothing about $1,500 a person that's in balance with anything. That's just those that can elitist. It's elitist, and that should not be what food's about. Food should be egalitarian. And the whole reason why we're talking about this toxic culture is because that's not the right way forward. And it doesn't fit with the balance of community, of sustainability as a society, right? That's like you have the ecology, and we're talking about foraging, and you want to do that in a very balanced way. Don't over forage, because then you have none for anything else or anyone else if you take too much. So again, extractive process, but you do it a little bit at a time. And then sustainability is talking about the community, and it's also talking about the economy. Well, the economy doesn't mean charge as much as you can. It should be that it is affordable for those. It's equitable. People should be able to experience good food without going broke. And the fact that like he was exploiting workers on the whole thing that for months, people, I can only imagine those people that didn't get paid at all, but they had to have a place to live. And also eat. Because those kind of restaurants, most of the time, like just because you work in a restaurant, it doesn't mean you get free food at all. You've got to pay for your meal. Yeah, maybe you get a discount, but you have to pay.
Well, a lot of restaurants at that level, you know, they do provide like a family meal or a staff meal, but not all of them.
That's
I mean,
true. So you have a staff meal at the beginning.
Yeah, or like the beginning of service, but really that's still only like one meal a day, you know? So
and it's like at like 3:00 and you're going to work until 11. You're going to be starving at the end.
Yeah. And I do have one last quote from a Guardian article by Lauren Joseph, who is a writer and chef. And she wrote, When I asked Chris Watson, a former Michelin inspector, if he could tell me about how the guide takes labor practices into account, he said, "That would make a very short conversation." A representative from the world's 50 best, meanwhile, explained that they strongly encourage voters to consider sustainable practices, including staff treatment, but that there are no predetermined checklist of criteria. A chef who trained at a storied 3-star restaurant and watched some of his pay slips be used to cover services provided, including a bunk bed and an apron, asked me, should a restaurant be able to receive a Michelin star or 2 or 3 if it does not pay its workers the minimum wage? If these awards won't adapt, we can at least stop giving them so much weight.
I would wholeheartedly agree. I think we need to come up with, and any of our listeners who want to chime in and help, by all means, but we should come up with a different star rating. Some, I don't know, regenerative practice, sustainability award, to include things like wages, treatment of people, because I'd get behind that. And as a diner, oh yeah, I would love to be able to dine at a place like that. So anyone who's interested, please, chime in, DM us. That would be a fascinating thing to explore.
We should just start our own. We'll just start going to places and, we'll give them our own star system.
Yeah, we have to get to work on that. We just have to come up with a clever name.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to have a clever acronym. You need a clever acronym. If you don't,
Yes.
it's going to get lost in the stars. So
lost in the sauce.
Oh, it definitely lost in the sauce. Yeah. So speaking of sauces or food, we have a recipe challenge to get to. We're going to skip the book thing today because we have this has been a long episode. So I'm going to
it's a very important topic. And we do hope that our listeners chime in. And if you have, any horror stories from any restaurants that you've worked at or anyone that you know, or like my mom was saying, if you have a better way or you think you have a better way of doing things or rating things, we'd love to hear your opinions. So please share with us.
Absolutely.
But don't forget to stick around for our recipe challenge, because today or this week, my mom had to make, what did you have to make? So this week, my mom had to make a recipe involving strawberries. And what was that recipe?
So it was a strawberry scone with orange curd.
Sounds yummy.
And what did you have to make?
I made strawberries romance, a very romantic strawberry dish.
Well, I can't wait to see how they came out. We'll see you in the kitchen.
See you there.
Everyone, welcome back to my kitchen. Well, actually, it will be the dining room table at the moment. And I just made Lauren's strawberry scones, and I had done the orange curd yesterday. Came together super easy. And I just made a minor substitution in the scone recipe. I actually reduced the amount of sugar, because when I make scones, I usually only put like 3 tablespoons to 1/4 cup of sugar in there. This one had a half, so I figured I could cut it because I don't like my scones being too sweet, especially due to the fact that it'll be served with the orange curd. The first step is to make the orange curd. This can be done a couple of days ahead if you are going to be really busy on the day you're going to make the scones. They come together super easy, just like a lemon curd. This recipe makes enough where you have plenty that's left over. It is important not to walk away while cooking them. You can curdle those eggs and it would be kind of lumpy. So strain it and pop it into a container. The next is to make the scones. Chop those strawberries super fine. Mix them in with the flour and all the other ingredients, cutting the butter in ahead, of course, and then mixing in all of the ingredients. Key in scones is to not overmix. Just about 15 strokes will get you there in folding, and then once they're done, place them onto a floured surface, pat them into about 6-inch circles, rounded, cut them in quarters, and then place them onto a baking sheet. I like to use a silicone mat that helps them from sticking as well as makes cleanup easy. And then brushing them with an egg wash if that's your jam. For presentation, it certainly does help, and they came out beautiful.
So let's give it a try. The texture here, pretty moist, and I think that mostly comes from the actual strawberries. That's likely what it comes from. Really nice, bright flavor. And the sweetness, perfect. That zing from the citrus, really good. Nice and moist. But with most scones, you want to eat them generally the day you make them. Anything after that, and they're going to reduce in the kind of that lovely scone crumbliness. Although these, because they have a higher moisture, I would say aren't as crumbly as your traditional scones anyway. That just comes from fresh strawberries being in there. The only way to get around that would be to put maybe some dried strawberries in there, like freeze-dried strawberries crumbled up instead. But I think the flavor is absolutely amazing. Really good job, Lauren.
Let's make some strawberries romance. To make my mom's strawberry romance recipe, I first started by hulling and slicing my strawberries and pine berries very thinly. Then I seasoned them with a bit of raw honey and Grand Marnier. Next, I prepared my bowl of ice with salt. After the ice was ready with the salt, I placed in another bowl, added my ice cream base, and started whisking. I had an ice cream base, which is just sugar, egg yolk, and milk and cream with vanilla. Something's happening. I used a double boiler method, but instead of boiling, it's freezing. I whisked it until it was about the consistency of soft serve ice cream. But after about 5 to 10 minutes, you can see it start to thicken, and then placed it in the freezer while I moved on to the next step. Back at it again with the whisking. Which was whisking my heavy cream to stiff peaks. Once the heavy cream was fully whipped, it looks stiff to me. I then folded in my mascarpone cheese. And then after the mascarpone and cream mixture was thoroughly combined, I then folded in a bit of my soft serve vanilla ice cream. You really want to take care not to overdo it and just mix till it's combined so that way it doesn't lose any of its airiness. This will ensure a very creamy and light consistency for the dessert. After that, the base for the strawberries romance was ready to go. So I scooped it into a serving bowl and then topped it with a bit of my macerated strawberries, and then it was ready to be enjoyed. So I've just completed my mom's strawberry romance recipe. For this recipe, I decided to forego using an ice cream from the store and made my own ice cream base and then whipped it by hand. But it was actually a fun process. I've never done it that way before, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I got my arm workout in, so, you know, it's all good. But I think that made this recipe just a little bit more special and fun to make. It's a very creamy. I decided to use pine berries and strawberries just because I thought they looked pretty together. It's very good. Super light, like a touch sweet, mostly from the strawberries. The cream itself is very mild because there's not very much ice cream base in it. It's mostly whipped cream and mascarpone. But it's very good. I really like it. If it wasn't breakfast, I'd probably finish the whole thing, but seeing as how I haven't eaten anything else yet, I'm gonna not finish it. Let us know in the comments what you think of this recipe and how you made it, if you decided to use ice cream from the store or if you decided to make it yourself and beat it by hand. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this recipe, so go on and give it a try, and I'll see you next time. Happy cooking! Let's be honest, eating well isn't just about restaurants. It's about what you're putting in your cart every week. And one of the biggest questions we hear all the time is
organic actually worth the extra cost? Next time on Too Many Cooks in the Kitchen, we're diving into the organic debate. What matters? What doesn't?
and how to make the best choices for your health and your budget. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram at 2 Cooks Podcast. That's the number 2 Cooks Podcast. And in our link tree, you can find all our recipes so you can make and share them yourself. And don't forget to tag us. And look out for the next episode. We'll see you next time.
Happy cooking!